It's 7 o'clock. We'll call this meeting of the City Council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll move next to roll call. Clerk Treasurer Aldridge.
Carolyn Pearson, Richard Traeger,
Present.
Brian Garrison, Dale Seward,
Here.
Mike Shockley.
Here.
All right, I apologize. We have first reading of budget on the agenda. That was accomplished 2 months ago. And then the second reading was accomplished last night. That was an administrative oversight by me. We'll move next to the reading of minutes and approval. We have the minutes here from the October 3rd, 2016 Common Council meeting. Are there additions, subtractions, deletions, or amendments to be made to these sets of minutes?
I had one slight correction, and I already asked Leanne about it. About halfway down the page regarding the community building, Deer Creek Township. It's $15,000 will be donated by Deer Creek Township, and $8,500 was from the senior services. Is the way, not area.
Originally, I had
Originally,
it.
you had it as area
Oh.
plan, so it's been amended on the
Right.
new set amendment.
Your draft shows the reflection.
So I would move that the minutes be approved as written for what we use.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as amended. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll pass that around. We'll move next to reports from committees, boards, commissions, and departments. You should have these in writing, or minutes of these minutes in writing. Councilman Garrison's absent, so we want to ask about area planning commission. Do you have any questions for the mayor or any of the department heads at this time? Yes, sir.
Aaron?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Should I go to Craig?
You're fine. My phone is turned off.
I've had some people express some concerns about the bump outs and when they're gonna be painted with the curb yellow on the outsides of them. Do we have a timetable for that?
There are no plans to paint curbs yet. There's nothing in design. That's how the bump outs are.
That's what, actually, I was meaning to text the person that asked me about it. Superintendent Lyons and I talked about it. Really, the yellow is there to serve as a marker, as a notice not to park there. With the construction of the bump outs, it's pretty apparent that you can't park on top of the bump out.
Can't even get around them. I don't think that's wise. Every other city that I've been to that has bump outs are painted yellow. And we get into winter time, I'm not so sure that's a wise decision. Monticello, Logan Sport, Kokomo, they're all painted.
Well, it's not in the plans. Let's
Okay.
put it that way. If that's something that the board or the council wishes, then they can direct me to do so, but there are no plans to paint those. Quite frankly, it's gonna be tricky too with the pavers up there to make sure we don't get overspray on them or anything, but there is nothing in the stellar plans that paint those curbs currently.
Okay. While I have you, you and Craig, when will the signs be on the side of you guys' trucks? You guys, there's no signs on the side of it that says City of Delphi. Is that in the plans to get taken care of, or?
If the council wishes us to, that'd be more than
Okay. And one last question. The street, or the curb between Market and the new convenience store on the north side, it's no parking. Do you remember a reason why that's no parking, or is there a specific reason for that?
Where are you at now?
Well, it'd be in front of the Office Tavern. That's as
Okay,
simple
on
as-
Main Street?
Yes,
That is no parking due to an ordinance.
okay,
That is on the books.
okay.
Is that due to our ordinance? I was thinking that there was a state provisions for it, is why it wasn't.
That, I don't know, I think there's something in our ordinance. It's on our books.
Watch out.
Actually,
You may run down and get the map.
Do we need it right now?
no,
We can get that map to you to determine whether it's by local ordinance or if it's by NDOT regulations. I don't know if, because you have that entryway in front of, from the office tavern, if that has anything to do with it or not.
I think we could get another couple of parking spaces there, quite frankly.
All right,
We may not get 3 or 4, but we can get 1 or 2 or 3.
let me do some research and see if it's by local ordinance or by NDOT.
Thank you.
Any other questions for department heads? Any other questions for department heads or the mayor?
Just for you, I wondered, what's the sort of a background on the new airport appointee?
The new airport appointee, he approached me, I think he talked to Mr. Larry Gruber, who's on the airport board. He has a plane that's out there, he used to fly pretty consistently. I think he's, I don't know if he's in the process of rebuilding an airplane or getting back into flying, but he has been a pilot in the past. He lives in Carroll County. I can't remember what his political affiliation is. I don't know if he's independent or Democrat, because I was trying to steer clear of Republicans, because I think we had just enough on that board where we couldn't have one more. But he has experience in aviation.
This Reese Creekmore, who is now our employee at the airport, says he brought in a resume from Jason Hart and suggested the airport hire him to be the new airport manager for 2017.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Creekmore is done with school at Purdue at the end of this year, so they're taking applications and resumes from current Purdue students. I believe initially they had 3. I don't know where they're at in that process right now. I know they got a resume from Jason, but they'd be looking at trying to get another Purdue student for hopefully all of 2017's goal. And I know Reese is putting together a list of things that the airport manager does in that position. From NOTAMs, which is notice to airmen if the airport's closed, to different requirements by the FAA. I don't know all of it, so I'm glad he's helping out.
Are we advertising that?
I'm not sure. That's the Board of Aviation Commissioners. I would assume it's somehow. I can reach out to Mr. Stanker to make sure it's being done properly. Any other questions for department heads or the mayor? All right, if it may suffice, I know we have members of the public here today for zoning. Would it please the council if I move to those items first, just so they can get in and get out? The first one we have is Mr. Royal's property. I'll give a little background. Mr. Royal's property, for some reason, didn't have a zone, at least a city zone assigned to it. We took it before the Area Plan Commission, initiated the proceedings, originally for a U1 zoning district, am I correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Royal expressed at the Area Plan Commission meeting that he would prefer is a B1 or B2, Mr. Royal?
That's B2, I believe.
A B2. The Area Plan Commission made no recommendation as to how to proceed, as to whether to zone it a U1 or a B2. Although I was at the meeting and Mr. Garrison was as well, as he's on the Area Planning Commission, the feeling from the room was that to allow it to be a B2. I know the map's not the prettiest because there's no color on it, but pretty much every area around there is zone B2, with the exception of residential property to the northwest. Is that correct?
Yeah, outside of the city limits.
their concerns for spot zoning if it was zoned U1. Mr. Royal would still be able to reside there if it was a B2, but he'd also be able to do different things. When he bought the property, I believe you wanted to keep your options open for developing a business there. There's quite a bit of property and some outbuildings there. So we would need, Mr. Wagner, what do we need to do if the council so desires to make it a B2?
They would have to vote on it to make it a B2, and then we would make that assignment on the zoning map, on a hard map, so I'd have you initial it as well as myself.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Royal regarding
I do.
the U1? And yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question. Andy,
Yeah.
do you later on see, in the future or down the road, what you may want to do or include in this property as far as maybe making a business in there if we do decide to give you the B2 zoning?
Well, yeah, I had been presented with a couple of options over the years, but one was potentially like a seasonal type of thing where I could sell Christmas trees. I know Wallman sells Christmas trees, but you know, if you've ever been to Dole's Christmas Tree Farm in Mechanicsburg, Lebanon area, it's a traditional type of thing. It's just seasonal, but that was an option that I wanted to leave open. That way it wouldn't, you know, where it's located and everything, you could pick up some of the traffic from Monticello that Wallman's wouldn't necessarily pick up for something like that, seasonal Christmas trees and things like that. I didn't announce anything about being Christmas trees because I didn't want Wallman's to be offended. I'd probably, you know, have a higher price or something for Christmas trees, but that was something that I thought would probably go pretty nicely there when everything's all fixed and nice, you know.
And reviewing our zoning ordinance, for a B2 local business district, a permitted use is a dwelling unit or lodging room as an accessory use in the principal building. So your residence there would fall under that category, I assume, Mr. Royal, if you're requesting a B2.
Yes, I'd like to maintain my residence upstairs, yeah. Like a lot of the businesses downtown here have an upstairs residence. And if later, you know, that the house structure, you know, I wanted to make a real estate agent or rent it out to a real estate agent or something like that, I'd like that as an option later down the road. And that's part of the reason I bought the property. It was in a nice location, and previously the Justice of the Peace was there, Lee Stone, and so he operated a business out of there too over a few years. I'm not sure how many years he did, but I still have the old sign, you know, that says Justice of the Peace in there, and so I hang on to that. That's kind of a memorabilia piece.
Now, are the Pizza Hut and Dairy Queen and the other across 421, are they all B2?
Yes, sir. Well, Pizza Hut, the actual building, Pizza Hut, isn't zoned to anything. It falls in the same category as Mr. Royal, although the parking lot for Pizza Hut and Dairy Queen are both B2. On the other side of US 421, between Monroe and Franklin, that's B2 for a ways down. I didn't have a street name.
So will we be dealing with Pizza Hut next? Is that
That
thought
one,
process?
Pizza Hut, because that's one contiguous parcel and a portion of it is zone B2, we can assume that zoning for the entire parcel, because you aren't supposed to have it appears what they did when they did the zoning down there was just extended that line of 421 straight across those parcels, and then left out Mr. Royal's property. And no zoning was ever assigned in that corner there, the Bicycle Bridge Road, to more or less what would be the north. in the northerly direction, no zoning was ever assigned in that area.
Now, what's to the north of his property? Is that the old Brosman property?
Kind of, yeah, to the northwest, that's B2. There is a parcel to the northwest, that's U1 urban,
So that's the Brosman property there?
I believe so.
Yes.
I hadn't reviewed the B2 zoning ordinance. Would Mr. Royal be in compliance with dwelling unit or lodging room as an accessory use in the principal building as it lies today? Or would there be a time frame on, if he's not in compliance with that now, when the residential becomes almost accessory?
It would more or less, at this point, it would be more or less a legal nonconformance because there is no operating business or anything in the downstairs of that residence, and it's truly a single-family residence on the property as the primary or principal structure.
Can I had some paperwork that, can I just hand to you?
Yes, sir, please. So we can get it done quickly, but I thought.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
stumbled
actually,
upon that.
you don't have to read through this. This is just what I presented to the zoning board. Oh, we're missing Mr. Frank Garrison.
Yeah, he's not here.
And then you guys have
Yeah,
the last
you dropped yours off.
one. I got it. Okay.
We do have some of this, not the pictures, but.
Oh, okay, some of that, okay. That's just the before and the after picture of the front. Now, I'm not completely finished with the front yet, but I have other things I need to do on the property to make it, you know, presentable to the city of, you know, because it's a main thoroughfare there, and I want to do that.
I think it's a good idea to put that as B2 for the sheer fact that you're right across the street from businesses, you're right across the highway from businesses, and the back end of that butts in, not a whole lot, but it butts into the Brosman property. And if we could ever get that developing or something like that, that may add acreage to that and be more attractive to somebody for development or purchase at the very least. So I don't have a problem with making it a B2.
I originally thought that way. I thought we were gonna come in and be easy, and sorry, I'm gonna be the hard one, Mr. Royal, because
No, that's okay.
if it's legally non-conforming for the way it resides right now, for it to be a B2, what are the penalties for non-conforming to the zoning ordinance? Is there?
It can be zone B2 and it continues as a legal nonconformance. To be extended, the home could not be added on to as if it was a home addition or residential addition. He would not be able to do that because it being a legal nonconformance. Now, if he converts the downstairs of that into a business, it would bring the property into conformance with the ordinance.
Okay, so he wouldn't be subject to, do you have any plans to add onto the residence as residential rooms or dwellings?
Well, why would that be a bad thing? To do anything like a deck or a fence or anything? I mean, why would that?
Well, it's a residential use that's not allowed in a business zoning district. So you're increasing a legal nonconformance. You're not allowed by the zoning ordinance to increase a nonconformance to the ordinance.
Than what's already currently there, right?
Right.
So is that why they didn't, I'm just asking this out loud, but is that why they haven't zoned that for a long time? I mean, is that why it never got zoned? And maybe that's why no one touched it, because when they put 421 in, that side, that was platted into the city limits. But it kind of divided me from the city in a sense, kind of, being, you know, several things, but,
I don't know if.
so I don't know
anyone's
why.
comfortable saying why originally it was zoned this way with.
Yeah.
It was probably in 1971 when it was zoned in this fashion.
That is correct, and like I say, it appears that they just took that line, extended 421 straight rather than taking a curve when they did the zoning on it, and
can that be put into a special exception in the business zoning? Because it was there as a business before they even put that road in, I believe.
The road went in before the zoning did.
Yeah, but the business was, that house was there long before even the road was there.
Right.
And for some reason, it was missed on the map.
Mhm.
Yeah, and when I bought that property, a lot of people didn't even know, from the courthouse, they didn't even know that that was in the city limits at all. Actually, nor did, you know, the mailman. So, once we figured it out, you know,
I guess, Mr. Royal, would you have any objections if, knowing now that in a B2 zone that you can't do anything more to make it more non-conforming? So adding on for residential purposes, would you have any objections to being zone B2?
I don't have any objections to the B2. I previously got a permit to build a deck on the back, and when they switched, I wasn't sure how that transition would happen, and so that deck, that permit expired, and so the deck is there partially, but it's not all the way complete yet, because I still have a lot to do. I mean, on other things on that property. There's several buildings there, so, anyway. That's why I was unsure about why we wanted to zone it right this moment, which is okay, I can do that, but,
Well, I think the reason for zoning it is Mr. Wagner's trying to clean up a lot of stuff in his office and stumbled upon an area of the city of Delphi that just has no zoning for whatever reason. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, and without having any zoning assigned to the property, when Mr. Royal comes in and applies for a permit, all right, how do I justify what is allowed and what's not, because there's been no zoning attached to the property?
and that's why I brought up Pizza Hut one and the Dairy Queen, but you said you'll just extend it as the zoning administrator, as an administrative.
That will be more of an administrative, because a portion of the property is already zoned.
Okay.
Could the deck issue be alleviated by a variance or something of that nature?
Like a
If he comes
special
across
exception
that
or?
problem down the road, if that's his main concern?
It would actually require an amendment to the zoning ordinance that allows that to be added on.
I was gonna say, the uses permitted as variances for B2 is an undertaking establishment, a veterinary hospital excluding kennels, and uses, buildings, and structures customarily accessory and clearly incidental to the above permitted uses when located on the same lot as the principal use. I guess your gray area would fall within that definition. Do we have any other discussion amongst the council?
Now, can I ask one more? You said something earlier at the zoning board, the hearing. You had said that until I made it a business up to 60%, it didn't actually go into it wouldn't have changed until that time, is that correct? There was something
No,
about
I believe
60% conversion?
the 60% was the, you could not do improvements if it's a legally non-conforming use
Over 60%.
over 60% of
So
the cost
technically, it
value
could
of the
do the deck.
structure.
Okay, okay. Okay,
So he would still be able to do the deck if it was less than 60% of
the value of the property.
Well, that's with the remodel or anything else. The deck, because it's extending the footprint of the home, what's there now is existing as a home, and that's a residential use. You could look at it, I suppose, as being part of the accessory use for, or if it was gonna be used for the business that he may put in the downstairs later. If the use of the deck is truly residential, and it's an extension of the footprint of that building, he cannot extend that legal nonconformance.
I would have finished the deck a long time ago, but during the transition, I was a little bit nervous because our interpretations were a little bit different. And so I didn't want to get stung with a heavy penalty or anything like that, so just being careful.
So what about what is already, he doesn't have to tear off what he's got done?
No, it was legally permitted. I would consider that legally permitted.
How's that permit? Did that permit lapse completely, or is it?
It expired not long after Doug, or right around that time, after Doug had come into, it was during the summer here, so when Doug was working. But Doug and I have worked pretty well together, I think, you know. It's just hard to figure out some of the details.
So are you comfortable with it being B2?
I am. I'm very comfortable with the B&B too. That was my goal a long time ago. And so I'd like to continue it to be in that category.
Because so this, you presented for a map amendment, it says it becomes effective promptly after this amendment has been approved by the SS Town Board, it would be the City Council. Does Mr. Royal need to come in and get a new permit for his deck at this point?
If he wishes to continue it, yes.
Would he then be non-conforming if this became effective immediately as soon as approved by the City Council?
That would be non-conforming, yes, at the point that it's approved by the City Council.
Could we table this discussion until December under the auspices that Mr. Royal will get a permit for the deck so that he doesn't fall within that extension of legally non-conforming?
Yes.
But I thought you said 60% of the value of the property anyway.
Well,
It wouldn't be non-conforming, I don't think.
Well, because the use of the deck is residential, it would be an extension of a non-conformance. When you zone it B2, you can't extend a non-conformance. So I think what the mayor's proposing is you go ahead, reapply for the permit.
while you still have no
Well,
zoning. so
there's
you
still
won't be out
no
of
zoning
control.
actually
I
assigned to
was
the property.
thinking more on the lines of the deck had more to do with, it had to be an elevated standing structure to access your electrical meter box. That was the whole point of the deck, not as necessarily residential luxury.
Yeah, if that's what the deck was, yeah.
That was in the
Yeah, if
intent.
it's not like a deck you're sitting out on or whatever, it's for meter
Well-
access, that's different.
I
Mr.
mean,
Roy, would it suffice if we table this until the December meeting? There's some language I'd like to, just like how it says town board, to clarify in this document, give you some time to get a permit, just to make sure there's no confusion about legal conformity for a deck. How long is a permit for the land use?
Permit would be good for 2 years.
It'd be good for 2 years. You still fall under this non-zoning that you have right now, so you wouldn't be non-conforming at that time, even if you're zone B2 at the December meeting.
so it'd be best that I redo you say I can't, right, and I won't get stung or anything like that
Right.
with the penalty.
Recommended during the month of November that you get a building, or a, what do you?
Improvement location permit.
Permit, location permit,
Okay,
for a deck, and then we'll come back at the December meeting, and I assume the council will feel amenable to make it a B2 zoning.
okay, thank you.
That's probably, could I get a motion for table?
I would move that we table this until the December meeting and revisit it then.
Thanks.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Royal, thank you, Mr. Wagner. We'll move next to Mrs. Cease. She has provided us with a letter. It's exciting, all the zoning stuff happening in 1 month. Mrs. Cease, you purchased a property at 201 West North Street. It is zoned to U1. I apologize, your letter's a little hard to read. The house was on the market and vacant for nearly a year, was falling into disrepair. You want to see it well maintained because it's a century-old historic house in our community, because it is the home where your husband grew up. You've just retired from teaching and would like to turn your energies into maintaining this property in the neighborhood in which it is located. You have business experience, you have hospitality experience, you have a BA degree in home economics. By using the income from overnight guests in the 4 bedrooms, the ongoing expenses of an old house's upkeep will be more manageable. You would also have 1 room for an art studio for yourself. Delphi's economy would benefit from having upscale housing options available for out-of-town guests who are here conducting business, visiting family, or attending cultural events. The North Street neighborhood is an ideal location for a bed and breakfast establishment. One of the reasons right now that you can't have a bed and breakfast on this property is because it's not permitted under the zoning ordinance of the city of Delphi. It's thought that it's because it's not included in this because bed and breakfasts didn't exist when the zoning ordinance was promulgated and adopted. It's zoned U1. Permitted uses are for single-family dwellings, public parks, elementary schools, high schools, churches, mobile home if in a mobile home park, temporary real estate offices, temporary buildings and structures incidental to construction work, storage of an unoccupied recreational vehicle in a private garage or rear side yard, and uses, buildings, and structures customarily accessory and clearly incidental to the above permitted uses. Now this, if we were to go further with this bed and breakfast, it would fall under category B of the Delphi zoning ordinance on U1 zoning, which is a use permitted as special exception by Board of Zoning Appeals. So this would be a variance granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals. Currently we have private clubs and religious and charitable institutions, home occupations, nursery schools, nursing or rest homes, governmental and public utility uses, mobile home parks, if in accordance with the Mobile Home Parks Act of 1955 is amended, hospitals and medical clinics, 2-family and multifamily dwellings, compact homes, and uses, buildings, and structures customarily accessory and clearly incidental to the above uses. So the council today has to, or I guess my request is discussion on whether or not bed and breakfast would fit into those uses permitted as special exceptions by Board of Zoning Appeals. Give me a second, I just took a picture of the Indiana Code on this. When amending a zoning ordinance, the legislative body shall pay reasonable regard to comprehensive plan, the current conditions and the character of current structures and uses in this district, the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted, the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction, and responsible development and growth. This is what the state law says we shall pay reasonable regard to. Mrs. Cease, is there anything that I didn't summarize or that you'd like to elaborate on further?
No, I think that sort of covers it. I'm wondering if it's possible to have it be in the A part of that rather than the B part of that, being that it's actually less obtrusive than those things that